Hello and welcome to Insight. Today we have with us an expert on the northeast region of India, Mr. Ravi Copoor. Mr. Copoor is a retired Indian Administrative Services officer from the Assam Meghalaya cadre. He has held various important portfolios, not just in the union government but also in the Assam state government. Mr. Capoor, from 2019 and 2020, was the Secretary to the Ministry of Textiles, Government of India. From 2016 to 2019, he was Additional Chief Secretary, Assam, with the portfolios of Mines and Minerals, Forest and Environment, Industry and Commerce, Public Enterprises Department, as well as the Act East Policy Affairs. Mr. Capoor previously also worked as Executive Director of Petroleum Conservation Research Association and was Director in the Ministry of Petroleum between 2004 and 2008. Mr. Capoor, post-retirement, served as the first Chief Executive Officer of Sansad TV. Please come join us today as we discuss the past, present, and the future potential of the Northeast region of India. Welcome, Mr. Capoor. Thank you for joining us on Insight today. You have been a bureaucrat in the Northeast for many, many years and you know the region really well. Could you begin by telling us why is the Northeast region so strategically, politically, and geographically important for us?
Thank you very much, Rami, for the invitation to be here. It's always a pleasure, and Northeast, as you rightly say, I've worked for 35 years there, and I have a great passion for Northeast. Answering your the first question on the importance of, if you look at the geography of India, this is one part of India which has international borders. And out of a periphery of about 5,200 kilometers of the periphery of entire Northeast, you have 95-98% of that goes into the international borders of 5 countries. So you have Nepal, you have Bhutan, you have China, you have Myanmar, and you have Bangladesh. No other region in the country is so strategically located where you have such large international boundaries. Not even Pakistan, because you have a limited, it's not a 5,200 kilometers border. Having said that, if you look at the history of Northeast, the entire composition of humanity in that area, and you go back a couple of thousands of years back, from 1,000 to 2,000 to 3,000 years back, this is an amalgamation and movement of people from the entire region of Southeast Asia and ASEAN, now called ASEAN. So there is a complete, I would say they are quite akin to the people who are in the ASEAN and Southeast Asia. From our perspective, considering what China is doing right now, China has a region called the Yunnan province. And China's Yunnan province, if you study it in depth, was till recently, till about 10 years back, 12 years back, was a similar region akin to northeast of India. And both had very strong similarities in the sense of being tucked in one corner of the country, landlocked, multiple ethnic composition of the entire region. Both, I am talking about both backward, both having a lot of international boundaries. China has used this space for their benefit as a geostrategic, they are using it as a geostrategic area, and they have plunged into this entire region using Yunnan as the province, as the platform. Now considering that, we have a phenomenal opportunity to do the similar activity, use Northeast as our springboard into this region. And you you have, China had this policy called the Bridge Act, Bridge East policy, and they did it under this. So I think we are moving into that space gradually. This government, and I said I worked in the cadre for 35 years. We joined in '86, and we've seen phenomenal changes. And the last 10 years have seen real big changes in terms of overall development, integration, mainstreaming the whole area.
Very important point, sir. That because I've been traveling this region for the last 15 years, there was a time when there was no mainstream consciousness of this region, and today there is. So I don't mean to cut you, but could you concentrate, tell us more about that? How has this dispensation managed to do this, which hadn't been done for so many decades?
I think the credit entirely goes to the political vision. And I think the Prime Minister himself at some point of time has spent a lot of time in the Northeast. And I think that has helped the entire government give a political vision to Northeast. See, first is in terms of political activity. So now it is mandated that ministers will have to visit Northeast at regular intervals. That itself is it appears to be a very small thing, but actually in terms of what we have seen, there was hardly any visits of any ministers. Ministers are not, I'm not saying X, Y, Z government, but over a period of 20 years we've seen that, and which was leading to this whole, as I say, neglect of Northeast. So I think that political connect has been made very strongly. Prime Minister himself visits Northeast a couple times of a year, which was unheard of. A. B. The development works, the infrastructure especially, huge focus has been given. I'll tell you a very interesting thing. When we joined the service long back, there was one Air India, and then it was Indian Airlines flight, 3 times a week from Guwahati. There was no other connection other than trains. And train had a single line. It was not electrified. But today you have Guwahati is perhaps the 8th most busiest airport in the country. You have airports in all major capitals, and not just airports, you have huge flights. Railways have been now there's double lane, there is electrification. The roads, less said the better. There's a huge emphasis on roads. There is the telecom has really, earlier there was no, now there's a whole emphasis on the optical fiber. The telecom infrastructure has increased. Power, of course now it is a national grid, so power is now available at every place. So in terms of plus economic development because of these infrastructure projects has thrown up a lot of economic opportunities to the youth, and this is the crux of it. When you have economic development, then everybody tries to take pie, and everybody is getting a pie in that cake, and they're all busy. I mean, I worked in Assam for so many years, and there was a time when Assam was burning, and we were then collectors and commissioners, and we know how we handled it. The economic opportunities at that point of time and the economic opportunities at this point of time, as a result of all these activities, the delta is too huge, and that is the reason why today's youth are, they are now very queued up into the whole business opportunities. Earlier it was only the traders from Rajasthan, Marwadis who were the businessmen. Today the composition of businessmen is now hugely in favor of the local boys, and these are direct result of a very focused approach to Northeast. The road, the rail, the airports, the flights, the electricity, the telecom infrastructure, all this has resulted into I think and today, I'm sure you are aware, but today, for the first time in decades, Northeast is a tourism destination. I mean, and I don't think any youth in the country doesn't know what Meghalaya offers today, or Assam offers today.
You're quite right, sir. I don't remember anybody going for a holiday 10 years ago to the Northeast.
Today there's a scramble. There are all hotels. I know the hotels which are sold for 2,000 or 4,000 rupees are selling for 20,000 bucks. Yeah. And you won't get so all this entire effort of the government to focus Northeast development has created, one, it has mainstreamed the states. Two, it has created a huge perception change in the rest of the country. Yeah. And consequently, there is most of the problems of earlier Northeast was its isolation. Correct. So that isolation, in one, if you ask me, that isolation has been broken. In terms of all, political connect, economic development, perception of people from outside,
Sir, I think you have seen the Northeast so closely, and I think it would possibly be unbelievable to people who haven't seen it over a period of time as to what it used to be and what it is today. In terms of, I don't think even Imphal had direct flights, and today it has more flights than, some of the major cities.
So as I said, new airports, airports in Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur, and this scheme of regional connectivity, RCS scheme of aviation, that's also helped. Smaller airports, I mean, for now it's not about Guwahati, it's now many more airports coming up in Assam. I mean, it is unbelievable. I'm telling you, 3 flights in a week from Guwahati, that was the connectivity.
Correct.
And trains used to take, if you boarded in Delhi, you actually didn't know when it will reach. Correct. That state of affairs, because nobody was bothered. Correct. So I think there's a paradigm shift in this whole approach to Northeast.
Absolutely, sir, and that's why it's in the mainstream consciousness today. But we touch upon some of these topics again in terms of, like you said, the potential of tourism, and also I think the role that, now how we've traversed from conflict to relative peace has also played in all of this infrastructure development, tourism. But before that, let me ask you about the kind of projects that are happening in the Northeast. It's said that almost 1 lakh crore worth of oil and gas projects are to be completed in the Northeast in the next couple of years. What is your view of it in terms of the kind of potential it will give us and the kind of opportunities it will provide the youth in the Northeast?
See, Northeast is rich in terms of oil and gas, very rich. We have yet to explore large chunks of it. The Arakan Basin, it is called the Arakan Basin. And it was actually, very interestingly, the first refinery in Asia was in a place called Digboi in Dibrugarh. So, oil and gas has been one of the first industries to be established in Assam, long back in 1895. Digboi was established in 1895. Since then, I am not very sure about how many states would have 4 refineries. Assam has today 4 refineries. And recently, a couple of major projects have been taken in. For example, Numaligarh refinery, which was a 3 million ton refinery, is now been poised at 9 million ton. A 25,000 crore, 22,000 crore investment just in this one single project. You have now a very interesting project with the Prime Minister laid the foundation of, and that's working on, is to have the entire Northeast on the pipeline grid, the gas pipeline grid. So it's I am not remembering the name. This is a project where all the oil companies have come together, and you're developing, connecting the gas pipeline to each of the state. Now gas pipeline, it may appear to be very innocuous, but gas is comparatively a cheaper source of energy, and it spurs, each gas pipeline in each state would actually lead to a lot of industrial activity. So it should not be seen as gas, should not be just seen as a household gas. Household gas is one small part of it, but basically the network which is being laid right now, and the work is going on in full swing, would lead to large pockets of industrial growth in these states, which is again a very ambitious and a very beautiful project. We have then the expansion of the Brahmaputra gas cracker project, now it's called the BCPL. That is a petrochemical complex that has been, it has gone for expansion. In fact, if you remember, the Assam agitation, one of the outcomes of Assam agitation was this gas petrochemical complex. This has been stabilized in the last few years, and now it's going for an expansion. So the refinery at Guwahati is going for an expansion. The refinery at Bongaigaon is going for an expansion. There is a word where discussions are happening where Nagaland Assam border has a huge oil reserve, which was hitherto was not accessible for various political opposition. That issue has been resolved. So hopefully in the next few years you will have oil coming from Nagaland. I mean, which is something which is we could not have thought of. So all this has happened because we've been able to create a political atmosphere of, as you rightly say, stability. And since the governments have been stable, there is a continuity in the governments, there is a lot of sense of satisfaction, and I think all these economic activities on the oil and gas sector has been facilitated because of this political stability. We just had I think Prime Minister inaugurated a 500-ton methanol plant in Dibrugarh, the first of its kind, which is providing green fuel to the entire, in putting it into the system in Northeast. So it's a for people, as a in large projects like other than the Subansiri project, for example, a huge hydroelectric project stuck for last 15 years, has been galvanized. It is going to come into production. Each of these activity is not only giving opportunity to the youth, also will result to incremental revenues to that area. Today, for example, and then, I mean, I can go on, and there are huge. Bhutan's GDP today, 70% of the GDP comes from water, by selling hydroelectricity which comes from the water. So you have huge opportunity in Northeast. Yes. Oil is one, water is another.
And I'm sure we'll be coming to that also.
I mean, there are some very long-term, real good ideas for Northeast in terms of changing the entire economic dynamics of Northeast.
Absolutely, sir. And I'm again going to touch upon this when we talk about Manipur and the conflict that we are seeing today, unfortunately. But before that, you have a vast knowledge about textiles because you've been with the ministry and you've been, in some of their grander moments with them in terms of the pandemic when the PPE masks were made at a record speed. So congratulations on that, sir. And I think your ministry, made us all very proud. But you have a vast knowledge on the soft power of these products. And in the Northeast, there are dime a dozen. Every house can spin and weave and, has its own handicrafts. So do all the tribes. How do you think we can monopolize or, make the most of this soft power that we have?
Very interesting. Interestingly, the weaving is a household activity. Unlike, like playing carom board is a household activity in Northeast. They'll sit down in the evening and play carom. Weaving is a household activity where the women of the house the woman of the house actually, when she gets spare time, this is a spare time activity by the way, she puts and actually looms and she actually weaves her clothes, the clothes of the family. So it is and each tribe, each sub-tribe, each clan, each sub-clan has its own designs, has own weaves. It's actually a mosaic of textiles which are there. Unfortunately, it is not on the commercial scale. It is at the, as I said, it is on the household level and they do it for their own consumption. Now gradually, as we are moving up, good entrepreneurs are coming in, mobilizing these women to produce more than what they just require for their house. I think it offers a huge opportunity, huge, because as you see there, and you're familiar with Northeast, you're studying Northeast, you know, maybe I would say every 50 kilometers the handloom changes. The design will change, the colors, you know, each tribe has very predominant different colors. And from the cloth you can make out that this comes from Bodo, this comes from Karbi, this is a Kuki, this is a Naga. You know, the weave, the clothing, everything is, you know, very defined for a person who understands Northeast. But for outsiders, it's a mosaic. And I think it's time we really work towards surpluses in this area and use that huge talent. Because, you know, there's a very interesting thing that in the last 2-3 censuses, we are seeing that the number of weavers in the country are going down. So it is a very good opportunity to not only just provide support, economic support to them, they also to preserve this beautiful hand skill which is dying in the country gradually.
Correct, sir.
And I think Northeast could become a very, very big source of fabric and textiles and various kinds of
products. So, but what keeps it behind? I've seen these products, you know, they could compete with any other product across the world, yet their access to international markets seem to be limited.
I'll tell you, see, ultimately in the entire handicrafts, handloom sector, these are the motifs, the designs are all hereditary. They have been traveling from generation to generation. It's same with a Kullu shawl or Kullu cap. The designs are the same, motifs are the same. The difference is the involvement of the designers. The moment the designers reach there, and one of the issues earlier was that, you know, given the political situation, the law and order situation, not very many designers actually reach these interiors. Now with the change of things and how dramatically they changed, a large number of designers have arrived there. Both internal, in-house, because these children have gone out, studied fashion designing, textile designing, they have come back. So now what is happening is the value addition, the change of designs, the colors, the motifs, the value addition is happening now. So another 5 years, what you are saying is completely correct. In the next 5 years, I see this Northeast as, and if we properly promote it, should have a distinct identity and should be available at the costliest stores in the country and the world.
Absolutely.
And there's no reason why it should not.
Why it shouldn't be, yes, absolutely. I've always wondered why it shouldn't be.
No, it's just, you know, you have to provide, you know, there's a complicated whole chain.
Correct.
The credit, the marketing, the design, all these are critical factors go into the...
Absolutely, sir. We'll have to do an entire episode
on
this.
I can, you know, it's too short a conversation to...
Sir, let me, you know, because with this kind of accessibility also comes again the role of peace and stability. And we've seen recently in Manipur the conflict that has been unfortunately going on after, you know, many years of relative peace. How do you view this conflict?
See, I'll give you first a generic perspective and then the local perspective. My own studies show that at the bottom of any conflict between any communities, at the bottom, if you keep diving down, it is the resource which it becomes the bone of contention. And resource could be in terms of jobs, resource could be in terms of land, resource could be in terms of various other things. We have seen in the Assam agitation started on the fact that immigrants were taking on land. So I am giving this reference because here also it is a somewhat similar, I mean, not exactly the same story, but the genesis of this problem is land, as I see it. It is the crux, if you deep down, if you ask me what is the problem, I will say land.
Correct.
And then you build up various layers of conflict over that, various types of, whether it would then the hills and local religion, you can, they are superimposed on it. In this case again, land is the basic problem. So limited land, predominated by a particular community, now being encroached by people from other communities who have access to hill land, and those communities have further people coming from outside, from Myanmar. There is also an element of foreign hand could be, which is to destabilize the region because it's very critical.
So historically we've seen it happen.
Very interestingly, I see Northeast as a huge opportunity for India, and the entry point to the Southeast Connect is the Tamu-More, the Asian Trilateral Highway. Now you destabilize that and you then cage the entire Northeast again. So here land is the key resource which is at the heart of this dispute. And all these tribals, as you are aware, all this entire region, land is very, very close to their heart. Very, very close to their heart. And then it is seen outsiders coming into this place, especially the Kuki infiltration from Nagaland, Chin areas. Now, that is been simmering for a long time. Metis feeling that they are getting marginalized. It should not have manifested because there were conflicts always, but there were never this kind of a open conflict. There have been conflicts between Nagas and Kukis, but never between Metis but then undercurrent has always been there.
This is true.
And the majority community, when it feels threatened, it has happened in Assam. The Assam agitation was like this. The majority community got threatened, and then they picked up the hands and they converted into a Assam movement, and then one offshoot became the Alpha, and it's all, but genesis is land. So I think we'll have to ultimately, if you have to address this situation, we will have to address the land issue. How do we settle the land issue?
Correct, sir.
All else is fine. How do we see that we appropriate the land amicably between all the communities living?
Correct, sir. Sir, but there's also now these huge fault lines that have been created between the communities. This sort of negotiation and any sort of ceding of space, I think, is going to take a long time to come. Because right now we can't even get them on the same table. How do you think these emotional fault lines are going to be bridged? And what role can the government play apart from the civil society?
I think, I have certain views which may not be very good, but I think at this stage when you need to cool down the tempers, you will have to take some administrative decisions. Which are, administrative decision means which are political, basically political decisions. How to bring, it is unfortunate, and I have not seen in my entire 40 years of career, I have not seen people not sitting for 2 months in a room. It's never happened. The worst of the riots in places like Aligarh, in places like Allahabad, in places like Gujarat, after 3 days, 4 days, 6 days, you will have a peace committee functioning with all committees. It is so. Obviously, as you rightly say, the fault lines are gone very deep. To address, you have to have a neutral situation, and the neutrality will have to be brought in by something more than what is happening today. it could be, sort of suspending the system for some time, bring a third, bring another administration for maybe 3 months, 4 months. Let everybody come in the same room. I mean, we have to create those conditions.
That environment has to be there.
So what is dangerous is, because these fault lines have been developed so deep right now, there's every chance of neighboring countries playing into this field. And then, so far for good reasons, we have not made it as it is a hill tribe versus local. It has not taken a communal color. So my worry is that at some point of time, if we don't check it now, it can take a communal color, which could be a very, not a very good thing for India's image. So I think some strong political action.
I have to agree with you there, sir, because the vested interests are many from all over, from within as well, who would love to give this a communal color.
And it's
when it is a solely land issue.
As I said, if you look at the genesis of every secessionist movement in the Northeast, if you keep deep diving, it will ultimately end up at land.
Because they're so attached to it. It's almost, land is their identity.
So one solution, it's of course a larger solution, and as we have seen it in Assam and Meghalaya, and I have been talking about this, is that we have to increase the size of the economic cake in the Northeast. So we have done the infrastructure, we have done the connectivity. Now it is time to actually rev up the surpluses in the hands of the local population, and that will come only through good industrial activity, good trading activity, and there is a very clear, it's possible. My take, it is possible, but that's a long-term solution. But right now on this issue on Manipur, my take is that we have to have a third-party intervention in this at this stage, a neutral administration for some time, bring that to a level where tempers soothe, and then people sit, and then a solution on, again, the solution has to be at the end of the day land and jobs.
Correct, sir. So let me also ask you, because we mentioned about the security status of the Northeast today as opposed to 10 years ago, and how it's almost like a catch-22 situation. You have instability, infrastructure won't come in. You don't have infrastructure, development won't come in. That will give rise to security threats. Now, we have quite a few viewers from the Northeast. So could you tell us what sort of this sort of conflict and instability, what sort of a threat does it pose to, the infrastructure or development imperatives taken by the government?
You're right. And for a long, I would say therefore, from 1990, 1888, 89, when this, I'm telling you my experience of Assam, 87, 88, 2 good 15 years down the lane. This was the catch. Should the law and order first become, or should development should come first? But I would say that there was some good chief ministers earlier also, and they took note, said we will take up the development issues first. I'm not saying it is either or, but development will also be, it will not wait for political solution to come and then we will start development. I think that strategy.
We'll start side by side.
Yes. So that should be the strategy. You can't wait. We have already waited far too long. Northeast has waited far too long. It cannot afford to miss the bus now. You cannot wait for another 5 years of political solution before you. So it is imperative that we must not stop the juggernaut which is rolling right now in terms of infrastructure development, under no circumstances.
Well said, sir. So let me come to my final question, and let me put it in 2 parts. You've had a very long, distinguished career as a administrator, as a bureaucrat. How do you see the role of a bureaucrat in complex areas like this? And also, what do you see Manipur in the future becoming with all the things that we've seen happen in the last few months?
See, role of a bureaucrat, again I say, the advantage of All India services is when the push comes to the shove and you have clash. All India service officer in this place is again a neutral, almost like a neutral one. And we've seen our role also. So it helps, and the political system also realizes that these are guys who have no interest, either political or otherwise, and these are the people who can be. So in most difficult areas, in the most trouble areas, you will find a very good officer being posted to sort out the issues. It's almost like a mini third party solution to that local area.
Correct.
Having said that, Manipur, as I said, we need to first, our stage one is should be a 3 to 4 months target to ensure that we bring around everybody, but around to talk and etc. But we need a clear cut solution on land, which you cannot say I have brought peace and then I am busy elsewhere, I am busy in Odisha or I am busy in Kerala. We will have to see that we bring a logical solution to this. I personally feel, and I am a big articulate, I articulate this at every platform, Manipur is the physical gateway, like Mizoram is to Sitwe port, Tripura is to Bangladesh, Manipur, Imphal, More is the physical connect to Southeast Asia. That itself, in itself offers huge potential.
Correct.
Today a large population of Myanmar, because they don't have too much of medical facilities, travel to Singapore. The people who can afford, they go outside for treatments. They go to Bangkok, they go to Singapore for treatments. Here you are next door. And it's not just Myanmar, Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, all these are catchment areas for Northeast where if you develop good medical tourism facilities, it means good hospitals, and the beauty of it is that we have a huge local talented manpower which doesn't get opportunity there, so they come out.
Yes.
All we have to do is to provide them the facility and all these people will come back. We've seen it in Assam happening there. So the moment opportunities come back, these children come back. So you facilitate, you take out about 4 or 5 areas of work, and development of Manipur. I am a big votary of this theory that you increase the size of the cake and you will have peace. It appears to be very abstract, but I am telling you physical experience, my own experience of 40 years. The cake is too small, there are too many takers for it. Everybody wants a slice reserved for him, his community, sub-tribe, clan, whatever it is. If the cake is too big, nobody is bothered, everybody is happy. There is no fight. The fight happens because the cake is too small. So at the end of the day, while this is not the time to talk about it, but I think simultaneously we should have a blueprint for a huge economic investments and how do we do it. And we don't need to, you don't have to have aluminum plants or steel plants in these areas. Develop it according to its own core competencies. Land at its core competency, horticulture is there, agriculture is there, bamboo is there, rubber is there. I think, just build an industry around this and let everybody become busy.
Correct.
Make money, everybody makes money.
Correct.
Believe me, you, I have seen this happening in Assam.
Correct.
You know, the size of the cake has become big. Opportunities galore. There is no, you will not find anything. Have you seen, heard anything in the last 10 years?
No, sir.
They are all busy, everybody's making money.
Even in Manipur, we saw this. The time of relative peace, we saw small industries taking up, young kids coming back.
So the ultimate solution to Northeast is that, we began with this and we'll end with this, you have a very important geostrategic location which we have not been able to use, I would say use, for India's strategic benefits into this entire. You can really use the entire region to benefit the Northeast. I mean, that is the roadmap for future. While we have done extensive work now within, time to look outside and connect with that area.
Sir, on that very positive note and looking towards a peaceful future, I would like to thank you for coming on and sharing your experience with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for giving this opportunity.
Not at
Always
all, sir.
welcome. Thank you.
That is Mr. Ravi Copoor, a distinguished bureaucrat who has served many, many years in the Northeast region of India. As Mr. Capoor said, that in spite of the hurdles that may be faced in the region, it is important to continue the road to development that has begun and is fast moving. Here is to hoping and wishing for a stable and peaceful Northeast of India.